Bless God. I know this passage here is really giving us some insights and thoughts. It's thought-provoking. Verse 25, Paul is saying, now concerning the betrothed. These are people who were engaged to be married. He says, I have no command from the Lord. So Paul is saying clearly, this is not Jesus speaking to me and saying this is what we should do. He says, but I give my judgment as one who by the Lord's mercy is trustworthy. He says, look, I've heard from God. I've seen the Lord. I spent time with him. I know the scriptures, the Old Testament scriptures. I've listened to the words of Jesus and by oral tradition. I've heard all these things. He said, now, this is my judgment. He says, I think that in view of the present distress, it is good for a person to remain as he is. And the present distress could be probably that they were facing with a famine or something like that. Or it could be, he's also talking about the present state of the world as we're waiting the return of Christ. He says, listen, it's better you probably stay where you are. Are you bound to a wife? Well, you don't seek to be free, obviously. Are you free from a wife? Well, don't seek a wife. And then he goes and he says, if you do marry, you have not sinned. If you do decide to get married, you really haven't done something wrong. You have not sinned. If a betrothed woman marries, she has not sinned. Yet those who marry, he says, will have worldly troubles. And he says, I would spare you that. When you're married, you have a different set of concerns, a different set of responsibilities. You're not alone anymore. And there's so much more to do. There's so much more commitment you have and responsibilities you have. He says, those who marry will have worldly troubles. And he says, look, I want to spare you that. He says, this is what I mean, brothers. The appointed time has grown very short. The appointed time has grown very short. As we're coming, and I mean, if it was short then, how much short is it now? He says, from now on, let those who have wives live as though they had none. You have a wife, you want to live as though you didn't have a wife. Now, he's not saying to say disregard your responsibilities and your commitment. That's not what he's saying. He's saying in your heart, in your spirit, and in your relationship to the things of the world, you want to make sure you're living a life fully committed to God. He says, those who mourn as though they were not mourning, those who rejoice as though they were not rejoicing, those who buy as though they had no goods. What is he trying to get at here? What is Paul trying to say here? If you're mourning, don't live as if you're mourning. If you're rejoicing, don't live as if you're rejoicing. You're buying as though you don't have anything. He says, those who deal with the world as though they had no dealings with it. He says, for the present form of this world is passing away. What we see here in this world, all the riches, all the glamour, all the glitter, all the glory, whatever it is, as there in the word, he says, listen, this is passing away. It's only temporary. And that's what he's trying to get at. How you're living your life, you must live your life with an eternal perspective, and don't be taken aback and taken away and consumed with all the temporary things. And he says, I want you to be free from anxieties. The unmarried man is anxious about the things of the Lord, how to please the Lord. Right? The man who's single, well, you can focus on the Lord. And he says, but the married man is anxious about worldly things, how to please his wife. Now, your focus is now kind of separated. You've got two things. You can be distracted now by taking care of some other business. He says, and his interests are divided. The unmarried or betrothed woman is anxious about the things of the Lord, how to be holy in body and spirit, but the married woman is anxious about worldly things, how to please her husband. You see, the man who's married wants to take care of his wife. He wants to please his wife. Same thing with the woman. When the person is single now, they can give their undivided devotion to the Lord. He said, look, I say this to your benefit, not to lay any restraint upon you, but to promote good order and to secure your undivided devotion to the Lord. I want you to be devoted to the Lord and devoted completely, undividedly devoted to Jesus Christ.